Good evening, my friends. Happy fall. I want to talk about facing your shadow self today. It's a pretty cool topic. This one is a little bit, it's not for beginners in terms of DNRS. If you're just starting DNRS, wait till later to watch this. This isn't really relevant for people just beginning their journey of rewiring their brain. If you are someone who's not limbic, someone who's not doing DNRS, or is farther along in the DNRS process, the chances are that this will be useful to you. I didn't even realize that this wasn't something that people intuitively did as part of the DNRS journey, because it did happen that way for me. Let me explain what I mean. So our shadow self is all of the aspects of ourself that are not rainbow and butterfly and rose-like. It's more the thorns, the parts of ourselves that are really intense, the parts of ourselves that are the violence, the aggression, the ego. It's your ego, kind of the really intense parts of your ego, your sexuality, your inner adolescent, your inner child, that kind of tendency we all have to have, we have all these parts of ourselves, and they're all eternal parts of ourselves. You can't, nor would you want to, or nor would it ever be healthy to get rid of any part of yourself. Your inner adolescent, your inner child is there for a lifetime. And I've been working on this intensely recently and talked to some friends about it. And I think it's really, really important, honestly, because these parts of us are parts of us, if they're not incorporated into who we are and kind of gotten on our side, they tend to go rogue and cause problems in our lives. And that's, again, where a lot of issues in life come from, and a lot of dissatisfaction and emotional deadness in life, and confusion and unhealthy relationships and unhealthy obsessions and behaviors and addictions and so on, all come from these parts of us not having become a part of us that kind of go rogue and go do their own thing. So when you really incorporate your shadow self, it's like you're befriending the inner child, the inner adolescent, as well as the part of you that tends to be aggressive or tends to be violent, or your sexuality, or just the really kind of primal animalistic parts of you. The beauty of doing this is that you then have all of that power on your side. One of the best examples I can give as a woman, I was doing this work, and I have an amazing, amazing friend of mine who has been walking with me on this journey for a bit, and I was doing a round with him, and it's a common thing, but he was talking about this energy in his round of tapping into kind of this killer energy, like this ability to kill on behalf of the people you love, like that's defense, the thing that men would do, because he's a man, the thing that a man would do if, like, your house is under attack, you would just instinctively, like a man would instinctively fight back. And it's a basic human thing. I think it's expressed a little differently in men and women, but this is a good friend of mine, and I remember having this profound feeling of feeling so incredibly safe, knowing that I have this friend who would fight on my behalf, because I know that that's the kind of friendship we have, where, if I was ever in a situation where I needed protecting, he would be there for me if he could. And it's an incredibly safe feeling. I mean, there's another quote that comes to mind, I think from like C.S. Lewis or someone along those lines, where they talk about how one of the things that allows evil to perpetuate in the world is when good men are silent, when good people are silent. And so in order to actually combat evil in the world, we have to be a force. There has to be a force to us. There has to be something really strong and fierce within us to protect what is good. And that's even the point of boundaries, as I tell my coaching clients and so on, is that the only purpose of a boundary is to protect something that's sacred. The only reason we put up boundaries within ourselves and with other people is to protect something that's sacred. And there's a fierceness to that, to protect what is good and what is sacred. So that's the whole point of facing your shadow, is to get that energy on your side, on your behalf, so that you can fight for yourself, so you can stand up for what is good in the world, so that you can be a force for goodness in the world and within yourself, and so that you can really fully enjoy your life and live a life where you're really incorporated and honor all the parts of you and make sure that your needs get met so that you're actually all there in your life as a fully integrated human being, because every aspect of us has a purpose and plays a role in life. Every part of us. There's no part, like your inner adolescent, your inner child, your inner warrior, the fiery kind of unpleasant parts of us are there for a reason, and they're necessary. So that's what your shadow self is. And what it looks like is in those times when, and this is, I had an experience recently of like I can't even remember exactly what it was. I was in the process of doing rewiring, as I do, and it came up that I wanted, this like kind of righteous anger came up inside of me because there were these pops. And I think it was related to a boundary with a friend. And there was like this fierceness to protect my friend's boundary because I care about my friend and I care about the situation that was happening. And I was like, I am protecting that no matter what. And it was just this like surge of anger, but it was anger toward protecting what is good. And those things will come up in your life. It's kind of, again, I think a lot of times we see this as like a parenting instinct, like a father's instinct to protect a child, or a mother's mama bear instinct. But there's a lot of situations in life where this is really meant to happen. And again, it comes down, as all of this work does, and I'll be making another video about this soon as well, it needs to happen first and foremost for us protecting what is ours, protecting ourselves, because we can only give what we have. And so when we learn to protect ourselves fiercely, to protect our resources, and to claim what is ours, all of our greatness and all of our responsibility and power and glory and worth, when we defend what we are with all that we are, we can then defend others as well. But it starts with defending ourselves. And so we use that strength and that power and that ferocity to protect what is good and what is right, and to make sure that no force of evil or of anything that we don't want could possibly break us because we're too strong. It's like you're getting that badass warrior, that person who, won't take no shit off nobody. You get that person on your side, because that's part of every human being. And another beautiful piece of this is when you face the darkest parts of yourself in the eyes, you've stared yourself down, and you stared down the most fierce parts of who you are, and you've made them your friend. It's like taming a dragon. That's what it's like. It's like taming this fierce, incredibly powerful dragon that's inside of you, and making it your best friend that you get to ride wherever. Another thing that pops into my mind is the scene from the movie Avatar, when the main character goes and decides to tame like the biggest, most insane kind of dragon-esque creature that lives in the sky. And it's kind of like doing that. But one of the beauties of that is once you've faced your own demons and your own darkness and your own violent tendencies and your own selfishness and your own everything, when you encounter that in someone else, it doesn't scare you anymore. It doesn't intimidate you, because you're like, oh, I've dealt with that. I know who that is. That's just this other person's shadow that wasn't incorporated into them. Big whoop, I know how to deal with that. Once you've dealt with it in yourself, you can deal with it in anyone else, and it no longer gets to you. It no longer scares you. It no longer bothers you. You know how to deal with pretty much anyone and anything. Another situation this came to mind in was watching a movie where there was some action, and it was like an up-close action scene. And I actually really, for the first time ever, really enjoyed watching an up-close action scene, because it was clear. I could just imagine, like, because of course when you watch a movie, you kind of imagine that you're in it, and you imagine like fighting someone and seeing like that person in your face, like the way that they would, you stab someone through and then like stare them in the eye while they die. It's like, there's something about when you've done that to yourself, when you've like purposefully killed parts of your ego so that they could become part of you, because that's kind of what it feels like. Sometimes it feels like you are killing a part of yourself because you don't want it to exist in that form anymore, and it has to die in order to be reborn as part of you. When you've done that, it's like and you've faced like so carefully, almost like the slow dance of death. Like you face it down and it's like, bitch, you're mine. This is mine. There isn't anything you can't do. There isn't anything you're afraid of you know, it's just, there isn't anything you don't understand either in other people when you begin to see that and incorporate it into yourself and learn how to meet the needs of your inner child and your inner adolescent and your inner warrior, and to use that power in a way that really is fulfilling to your life and your purpose and to what is good and building up a kingdom of goodness in this world. It's pretty incredible. So that's ultimately what happens too. And it's a lot of times we see situations where people will lash out in bitterness or anger, after holding something back for a long time, because they're not giving a voice to these parts of themselves that need to be heard. And when we incorporate them, we get to have that fullness in our relationships and in any area of our life where we're having a need and it's not being met. And when you've incorporated that into you, you're making sure that needs being met in some way or another. I have a very strong desire for adventures, and I can't do big things right now, but when I see something I can climb on, I can be like, I'm going to go climb that right now because I feel like it. You know, you start taking more risks in your life because that's a part of us. You know, this desire to do dangerous things and to do big things, you start to find little ways to fulfill those things, and you become much more courageous and much more bold and much more fulfilled in your life. You give a voice to all the parts of you because those parts of you need to live, they need to breathe, they need to exist, because you'll either be numb or out of control if that part of you isn't incorporated. That's what will happen, guaranteed. That you'll either have, you know, a human person will have numbness and emotional deadness, or they'll have addictions and compulsions and odd behaviors that don't serve them in their life, because these parts of us are parts of us, whether, you know, we didn't ask for it. This is what it means to be human, is to have all these parts of you. And this is just an introduction. I'm not gonna go super deep into, because honestly, I haven't even processed for myself how exactly I did this. It was a very intuitive thing. But one thing you can do as a practical thing, if you're looking to do this in your life, is when you start to have anger come up, or you start to have irritation, or just these desires that are so strong, and they start to go in a direction where you're like, that's not me. Like, I'm not that kind of a person. I don't do that. I don't have thoughts like that. I don't have compulsions like that. That doesn't really seem to be matching who I am. You can stop and have a conversation with yourself and be like, okay, what are you pointing at? Like, what is it? Why are you doing this? What is it that you need here? And how can I fulfill that need? And get creative. You know, once you've had that conversation with yourself, do whatever you need to do to make sure that that need gets met. Start to find that path, and to make a path if there isn't one there. Sometimes another situation that happened recently is I was having emotional pain come up over and over again, and for me that's not typical, and I was kind of confused, and I was like, okay, self, like, what's going on here? And so I sat down and actually wrote down what was going on, and it was really enlightening, which for me in the past I couldn't ever journal. Journaling was just repeating problems over and over again, but this time it was actually like, okay, this is why I'm having this emotional pain, this is all the reasons. Look at that, it's logical, it makes sense. Oh, thank God it makes sense. That means I can process it, I can cry, I can release it, I can move on. There's just so many different ways that, you know, creating art is another great expression. Like I said, I'd love to just go find things to climb on and dance a lot, because it's a great expression of my desire for, you know, physicality and adventure in that sense. So there's just, it's a matter of facing those things, and then really having the genuine intention to meet the needs of those parts of yourself and to let them be heard and seen and expressed. And when you genuinely want to do that, you'll find a way to. Something that does tend to get in the way here is sometimes we will have that part of ourselves come up, and it wants something very specific. And a lot of times we can't have exactly the thing that we have a hankering for. We have a hankering for something very particular, and it's like, it's important to let that go in order to get the actual need filled, because the need can be satisfied by something much less glamorous than the thing that you're really craving. A lot of times you don't need what you're craving, but the craving is pointing towards a genuine need, where if you let go of that craving and actually just listen to yourself and have that conversation and look for other ways to fulfill it, once you've released the craving and the longing piece, and actually choose to be satisfied. It's huge. Like, that's a big thing that's changed my life, is I choose to be satisfied. I choose to be satisfied by what I have, by my life. And then if you seek satisfaction, you will find it. If you genuinely seek it, you'll find it. So it's kind of finding a voice and a place for all these different parts of us and seeing how they are part of what make us human. And that's really important to be a fully functional, integrated, healthy, whole, powerful human being. So that's my introduction to shadow work. It's a really lovely thing, honestly. I never thought I would get so excited about the idea of death. I mean, I found as I did this work, I was like, I'm really happy that I'm going to die one day. I'm really happy that I don't live forever. And even just happy to be in a space where I'm happy to kill off parts of myself that don't serve me anymore. I'm excited about the process of death and rebirth within myself, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Like, I'm happy to say bye-bye to the old parts of me that don't serve me anymore, so I can say hello to what is I really want in life. And that's been a liberating feeling. Like, I couldn't imagine how liberating it would be to make friends with death, you know, with the basic, you know, dying, something part of you dying so that you can have something new. And yeah, it's just an incredibly free feeling. It's amazing how even the darker parts of life and the more painful parts of life and the more scary parts of life become attractive and powerful and meaningful as well. Yeah, everything is a blessing. Pain is a blessing, and death is a blessing. I mean, but it's through this process that we begin to befriend those things and their archetypes, and we can actually befriend them in reality when we encounter them. So that's shadow work. I'll probably talk about it more another time, but in the meantime, lovely night to all. I love everyone. I love you all. Blessings.